Welcome to Bots and Bytes, the ultimate tech talk podcast. Join us as we journey from the realm of AI to the boundless expanse of the cloud. We'll explore the cutting edge technologies that are reshaping customer experiences and driving businesses to new heights. Prepare to be inspired, informed, and intrigued as we delve into the world of innovation and transformation. I'm your host, Jess Vigorito, and this is Bots and Bytes, a GTS production where tech dreams become reality. Let's dive in. Welcome, tech enthusiasts, to the ultimate tech talk podcast, Bots and Bytes. I'm your host, Jess V, and today's journey is jam-packed with excitement. Joining us is our esteemed guest, Dr. Atif Farid Mohammad, Chief Artificial Intelligence and Data Officer and CISO from Global Technology Solutions, aka GTS. His expertise in AI promises an enlightening conversation. Dr. Atif, can you briefly share your role and experience with us at GTS?
Sure. Thank you so much, Jess, for this opportunity. I'm Dr. Atif Farid Mohammad. I am the Chief Artificial Intelligence and Data Officer as well as CISO as Global Technology Solutions, where we are assisting in reliable, compliant way to our potential clients going to be and our current clientele, where we are serving in the capacity of contact center using generative artificial intelligence as well as standard artificial intelligence practices. So that's what we do. We are absolutely compliant in the case of CISA and DISA and all those three-lettered agencies, that we are within the domain of cybersecurity also in control.
Let's dive right into the innovation and transformation of AI. My first question for you is, what is advanced analytics employing responsible artificial intelligence, otherwise known as AAERAI, and how can it help the mental health care industry?
So, mental health is a wide domain that we can look into that has anxiety, depression, that comes from substance abuse or PTSD or ADHD and all those things. I'll not go into details, but mental health is a domain where artificial intelligence is helping by employing the advanced analytics. That means that if some individual is facing something and being taken care by a care provider, and the discussion that are happening back and forth in terms of question answers or general discussion, what is happening in an individual's life, artificial intelligence empowered with the generative AI can actually figure out the features in terms of extrapolation with the relationship of current comorbid condition of an individual with the mental health. A person might be using opioid or might be using antibiotics with alcohol, which also create hallucinations in one's mind, which are bad for mental health anyhow. So the extrapolation of features aligning the comorbid conditions and the other mental health conditions of an individual is helpful for a provider or a care coach or a nurse or a psychiatrist or psychologist to create a plan for an individual who's been treated, go step by step towards success and better mental health. Hopefully, this is not too verbose.
No. I definitely want to get a little bit more into this and find out what that looks like. But before we jump in, just how has AAERAI been used to identify and address mental health issues?
So, when we are addressing any mental health issues, we need to know the pre context of the current situation that an individual is in. That's why he or she or they are looking for help from a care provider in the capacity to be better tomorrow. Because yesterday, whatever happened is a pre context. Today is a context where a person is at this moment, and post context is tomorrow, which is going to happen. And when we are happy in a standard day, the day goes by pretty okay. And then that has several aspects: the living conditions, the earning of an individual, or the services being provided to an individual at a level where there is a certain reference or a context that aligns with an individual's conditions. and the better tomorrow is anticipated. No one can, predict the future with a certain, probability or plausibility. Artificial intelligence use allow the individual to allow to make a path where he or she can walk or they can walk at a level where tomorrow is better for them by giving most of the time not precise but an estimated step by step movement to the better tomorrow. And that happens with the statistical techniques called probability, plausibility, the potential regression that is happening of an individual, whether that's regressing upwards or downwards.
So in this case, is the AI giving steps for the patient to follow each day?
For the provider is the one who's making a decision. AI cannot make a decision, and we must not rely on AI to make a decision for an individual, because you and me as human have a potential to understand what AI is suggesting us or prescribing us to give our patient, who we are serving as a care provider, that what should be done in moderation, where with that individual's age, living conditions like social determinants of health, the care provision area where they are at. AI is not cognizant of all those human aspects which are associated. Hope this helps.
That absolutely does. So it's really bringing in a very holistic viewpoint, and it's a tool for the provider who can look at all these environmental factors, all these circumstances of that particular patient, and then set up steps for the patient to follow.
That is correct. Yeah.
Got it. Can you explain how this type of AI is used in scheduling and patient flow for mental health patients, especially?
It depends on the category that a service provider places an individual being served in terms of the betterment of the care. And that care comes in terms of a PCP or primary care physician or provider recommending few steps to be taken care by this other provider who is helping, let's say, for example, telehealth, and then helping an individual towards the betterment. The scheduling should be happening by the help of AI in terms of which time suits an individual who's being served. Morning, the person is morning person, the person is afternoon person, evening person. And obviously, if you see, the hospital system is 24/7 most of the places. So as an individual can actually been served in the afternoon when he or she or they are at their better performing way in terms of speaking with an individual, and then doing the tasks that they are supposed to do. They can walk out by the help of care provider at home or commander at home or captain at home. That those are several terminologies we use. However, on the other side of this spectrum, the service provider or a care coach or a nurse or a psychiatrist or psychologist would make, step by step aspects at how he or she or they are going to serve this individual. And that scheduling can definitely be held by the generative AI by looking at the behavior of an individual who's being served.
That's fascinating. How does this also play into, and this question actually kind of blows my mind because I never would have put the two together, but how does this type of AI play in neuroimaging and functional magnetic resonance in imaging in mental health care?
In that case, that care provision happens when an individual walks into a facility and been put all the sensors and and
Sure.
and looked at the cognitive behavior of an individual, that by drawing something, by creating some sort of text, and that can be given on a context by a psychologist or psychiatrist. Can you write 5 sentences on this? Whether how coherent that individual is by writing or by drawing that something on the piece of paper or on a whiteboard or so all those things then are merged in terms of sensory data that has later been looked at by the advanced analytics employed by artificial intelligence and to figure out whether the point would have been on, let's say, for example, if I'm holding my phone, if I am a patient and you are a provider and you ask me, okay, can you open this thing up? And you showed me. Now I am being literally, having shivers, even though I'm not cold and all. And then it takes me some time to open that. Then that's a condition that can be a mental condition that must be, noted within the sensory aspects. So next time when I come and I have less shivering and I have more control, that is technically an evolving situation that yes, now I can even hold this phone in this capacity, whereas previously I was shivering even though I had no fever, no cold, nothing. I don't have any other cognitive disability which is making me this. But being I'm not focused, I might be, not putting my fingers in and might be trying to figure it out, even though I can see it, and then I can do this. Because no, the care provider will not ask me to go look at it. That means all the sensory inputs of an individual, me for example, must be looking at this and then okay, this opens like that, and then I can hold it. That means that I'm now employing all my human capabilities on figuring out an object, while all my sensory inputs are coming in that are at a certain level. I do apologize. Let me close this call. That happens. That's also, something that we must be careful in our when we are in a situation of mental health, how cognizant we are as an individual serving to an individual of the surroundings or context. We just have seen a live demo that someone called on my cell phone. And me being focused on you, I just simply went and I said in verbatim that let me take care of this later. But that distraction for an individual who's facing the mental health, that sensory result might be delayed or might be all back like that. How a service provider is going to take care of that, tackle that situation to bring the person's concentration back to where he or she or they were. That's where your question is significantly important. With all the sensory data, all the neural, inputs which are coming in out of an individual, they all need to align a certain domain. So there are domains and then there are ranges. How good is a person within a range of A to B, B to C, and C to D? If A to D is the whole path, is the person behaving in A to D fashion, or A to B fashion, or B to C fashion, or C to D fashion? What tweaks can be happening within the service provision by a provider to align and bring all in one big domain of A to D?
In this case, is the AI making suggestions to the
Yes.
provider?
Yes.
So it's looking at all the data, evaluating it, and then making suggestions.
In live time, yeah.
I took my son to the ER. He had a very high fever. They did blood work right away. They ordered x-rays and everything came out fine. And I could see when the provider came in on the computer, it was generating, because all this was normal, but yet here is still a child with very low blood pressure and a high fever. What else should we be checking? And it's not that the provider doesn't know. Obviously, they do know, but it's making sure that there's no errors, I think. And it was like, check his lactic acid, make sure he doesn't have sepsis, do a blood culture. And so the provider told us, I'm going to do these following tests. It's just to rule out all this stuff. But in essence, we expect them all to be negative, but we're covering our bases. And it actually, as a mother, it made me feel very, very comforted that this provider really was following proper protocol, was invested in my son, was curious just the way I was, and worried like, hey, there's a very sick child here. Let's just cover all these bases and make sure it really is just a really bad virus and it's nothing more serious happening.
That suggestive details which came on the monitor for the PCP or the primary care physician came. If that person is tired, and has been on the shift for last 12 hours. It's a possibility that he or she or they might,
kind of miss
yes,
a little.
miss few things. And because,
It's human error.
it's human error. And that's what that individual has done the right thing by ticking all things off. So by excluding anything that would have prevented your child not to get better faster in that aspect. I agree with you.
I'm trying to wrap in how this type of AI that we're discussing that's being used specifically for mental health, how that has practical applications beyond mental health too. And here I just had this real life experience on Sunday. So how does AAER AI help policymakers and industry leaders in making decisions specifically related to mental health care?
So accountability,
That's a big one.
inclusiveness.
Huge.
Yeah, so these two things are significant when we look into policymaking. If we are not making an individual accountable of his, her, or their behavior towards a certain area to be taken care, it means that we are leaving an open door for an individual to do whatever they want. And accountability comes on both aspects, the patient as well as the care provider. The care provider is accountable to make sure that all the aspects, the exhaustive, are taken care in providing the care of a patient who's having some sort of mental health issues. Whereas patient is given a little leeway because patient is patient. It's not in patient's control what is happening at this moment. Might need a care provision by a commander at home or commander at care or captain at home, something like that. That terminology differs at different places. That individual is providing in-person care to the patient. We don't know if I am a provider, so I don't know what that individual is facing because that individual is not my patient. That individual might have some job issues, might have some other familial issues, or might have a situation where he or she or they are in a business which is having a lapse up and down and all. By the way, but simultaneously, that individual is taking care of this person who is being served for the mental health. So, in that situation, how would a care provider go about it? That comes out of the discussions which are happening and recording. And then generative AI or responsible AI goes and finds the correlations between these two. One is being served, one has been given the instructions how to take care of that individual's walk and talk and sleeping and then food and digestion and giving in the appropriate medication at a time. But again, that third party who's serving in person, I am as a provider have very less knowledge, but AI can definitely figure out the discussions where I can help that individual serve this patient appropriately.
So I'm thinking back to I had some IEP meetings last year for my daughter who is a selective mute, and that is considered a mental health condition. And even though it's called selective mutism, it's not a choice. It is rooted very deeply in anxiety, which I'm sure you're fully well aware of. It's also fairly rare, and her teachers and the special education unit at school had very little familiarity with this. And I ended up having to do a bunch of research on Google and sending articles to her teachers and to the staff. This is how to help her. This is how to help her communicate. And having her do a project where she has to stand in the front of the room and give a speech is not going, she can't do it. Like, you can't have that level of expectation on a child who has selective mutism. And all that work and labor came on my shoulders as her mother, that I had to be the advocate for her because the school faculty just wasn't familiar with this type of condition. And from what I'm gathering from everything you're saying, that in the future, like, I know this is very focused to mental health and how that plays out in the hospital and with that care provider. But even for me, I'm already thinking in education, in schools, how easy it would be if they could just pull up a segment of her medical chart and see what the suggestions are right there for selective mutism. What are the things you can do to encourage her? What helps her? What hinders her? And it's very quick. It would be bullet points and a combination of AI suggestions and her provider endorsed suggestions. And I think that's really, really life changing for so many people out there. And I'm very fortunate. My daughter's in a Montessori school, so the grades are clumped together. So she has the same teacher for fourth, fifth, and sixth grade. And the reason why that's so fortunate is we don't have to go through this process every single year. But middle school is approaching in a couple of years, and it will be a new process. And then it will be, not even just one teacher, but every single teacher trying to get them to really understand what selective mutism looks like, and that these are the challenges she has, and this is the best way that you can communicate with her. These are some project alternatives you can provide for her, and it just releases so much extra labor for everyone involved and frustration.
So that's a fantastic example. That's a real life example that you have. And obviously, at this moment, you're the captain at home or commander in care of an individual who's mentally fine. It's just a state of mind that is there, and you're aware, and you're helping the teachers, and teachers are not the care providers.
Right.
But if a care provider comes in that situation, imagine that individual, your daughter, for example, goes to a university, 18 plus.
Yes.
You are no longer in the picture.
And I worry about that moving forward. I'm already seeing it.
and this is something that, well, I live in state of North Dakota, and here the parents are being involved even in the university first 3 years, in a sense that obviously I'm not allowed to look at my son's grades and all that jazz, but I will know by our discussions where he stands at this moment in the university. And obviously, that's where the transparency kicks in between you and the teachers in the school system, because you can see the step by step success of your daughter. And then you just mentioned that it's a cumulative grade, and it comes in and it gets you satisfaction as a commander in care that your daughter is progressing as it should be. So imagine the odds that teacher is not a care provider, but if a situation happens where a care provider has to serve a patient towards a better success, and a commander in care of your caliber comes in, how easy for this care provider life, that you are also taking care, rather you're going above and beyond of the call of the duty to help that individual who you are serving at home, but on the other side of the phone or on the video chat, the link is so inclusive and transparent that you understand what care provider is saying. You're not a certified care provider, but you are in person available to execute those steps which are been suggested by the care provider for a patient. That's where artificial intelligence comes very helpful, being transparent, having the fairness, and also along with the fairness, it's inclusive and it's private.
This is very enlightening, and it's as a mom, as a parent, as an adult functioning in the world right now, and being really intrigued with AI, but also kind of cautiously waiting and watching to see how it progresses, because of course we've all seen movies like The Matrix where AI takes over, and it's doomsday out there, the apocalyptic world. And it's really amazing to me to witness how AI functions and to learn more about it, and to realize that AI always needs that human over top of it. There always needs to be a human invested in it.
Because AI is not all 365 covered. As a human, there are experiences we have which needs a translation for AI to understand what are these. That can be smelling a flower and having the rose in your hand and figuring out that how the petals are beautiful and where are the dews on that, which petal the dew is in the morning. AI has no distinction. AI has no idea that eyes, nose, and our sensory images, which are processing that petal, having a dew, drop of dew. What's that experience is, a human can know. AI will never be able to know that. And if someone has an issue with that, they can contact with me. So I'm teaching artificial intelligence since 2015. That's the area which I know what I'm speaking.
Yes, you do. Absolutely.
Thank you.
While we're giving examples, can you give me an example of how emotionally aware chatbots are being used to collect data for mental health care and scale that process?
That is a combination of three things. One, a patient who's speaking on that phone or a chat bot. And number two is a care provider who's listening or who's answering those things. And then a chatbot or smart AI agent. This Venn diagram has three combined features. If a patient starts yelling, the voice will go loud. I just gave you an example. Or is being passive. I'm not speaking with you. You might have not heard me. I just said I'm not speaking with you at a very low tone. I just gave you two examples. There is an involvement of smart agent to send a note right on the bottom of the screen for a provider that this person is being, you know, it's too loud, is either not hearing you or might be having some relapse, or there might be some other mental condition that he or she or they are at this very moment, or there's something which you're not aware because you're on the other side of the screen. And on the other side of the screen, it's a possibility when the noise cancellation happens. If I start speaking high and then suddenly my mics, let's say for my Mac, would cancel that and send a little less volume to you who's listening to me. And you might think that I might be on the back and making sure that you're hearing whatever I'm saying. Now, this smart agent or the chatbot, which is emotionally aware, can actually create a range that this person is speaking, and that range comes with the discussion that you and me are having. All that, okay, this is the frequency is being this, but suddenly the person burst up, or suddenly the person went down and is not speaking very loud. So, how to address that? That's the care provider's job, right, to notice that. It can be, suggested by the emotionally aware chatbot or smart agent to right away mention that these are the potential things. These are, you said this, and then the script whole starts goes up. You said this, and the person was fine, and you said this, and profession, the person said just jumped up or go low tone. So here, the behavior of a provider needs to change to calm down on the other side of the person, the patient. That's incredible. How do advanced abstracts created by AAER AI improve engagement and interaction in mental health research? So let's say, for example, I share with you one of my publication has around 9,381 people's data. Those spoke up to 1 hour with a nurse care coach and then shared what they were facing or they were going through in their life, and how they are improving or whether they are not improving, or they think they are not improving or they think they're improving. However, their vitals, which are coming in through the blood tests and all that jazz, are giving a whole different picture to the care provider. And the PCP notes are coming in that person is relapsing in the medication, has been readmitted in the hospital more than 3 times. So what you are doing, the care provider, as a psychologist or psychiatrist and all that, and that's a big question mark. And then this person who's being a care provider needs to adjust the therapeutic ways for a patient to get better, not to go and readmit in the hospital, not to go and ask for an opioid, not to go and ask for unnecessary dosage of vitamins, which usually are not prescribed by the PCPs or the primary care physicians. That is where inclusiveness kicks in of the system with the ranges which are being aligned by the AI agents for a care provider to follow, and not to follow verbatim, but to make changes accordingly. Hope this helps.